Hi, everybody. So in the previous video, we talked about the very first step of completing the square, which is to identify our b divided by 2 and square it. We learned that what we're trying to do is create a perfect square trinomial. That's what we were trying to create, a perfect square trinomial. So that's why we were taking half of b and squaring it. Okay, so let's jump all the way down and let's try it the next step on some problems. Remember, our mission is to change from standard form to vertex form, and we're going to do that by completing the square. So here we have y equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. Okay, and so we're going to make some space. Okay, we're going to look at our first two terms, and we're going to complete that square. So we're going to add a space right here to complete that square. And I'm just going to move the 3 over. And because I'm on the same side of the equal sign, here's what I'm going to do. If I added it, I'm going to subtract it to balance the equation. All right? So we do add and subtract to balance the equation. Okay, so now we're ready to do our first step, which is identify what b is, our linear term. B is 4. So we're going to take b, we're going to take half of it, and we're going to square it. That is our first step. So 4 over 2 squared, 4 over 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So the number that's going to be added is 4, but it's also going to be subtracted, so I get a net of 0, so it cancels out, right? Because we're on the same side of the equation. So now we're going to rewrite our equation. So that's going to be the second step. Rewrite the equation in vertex form. So we're going to do that by simply rewriting the perfect square trinomial that we created. So the perfect square trinomial that we created is right here. X squared minus 4x plus 4. So we're going to rewrite that as y equals, put in parentheses and square it, right? And so what was squared? Remember, this b right here, this number right here is what goes inside the parentheses. That was our b over 2. That was how we got 4 to be added. So we're going to say x, and this is a positive 2 here, just because we just didn't take the positive here. But we will look here for the sign that goes into here. So this is x minus 2 squared. Now we're going to combine like terms. So 3 minus 4 is 1. To combine like terms, we're going to do 3 minus 4. And so that gives us a negative 1. And voila, we're in vertex form, where our vertex is, remember, we take the opposite of what's in the parentheses. So x minus 2 means h was a positive 2. So h is a positive 2. K is a negative 1. So our vertex is 2, negative 1. You can actually graph this function to see if that actually turned out to be the case. So in this example, we have y equals x squared plus x minus 6. Now, I did this because there's no number in front of the x there. So I wanted you to see a problem like that, okay? We're going to do the exact same thing, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the equation. Y is equal to x squared plus x minus 6. All right? So our first step, just like it was before, is we're going to identify b. Okay, and we're actually going to make some space like we did before. So y is equal to x squared plus x. We keep the first two terms and we make some space. So plus blank, move the 6 over. And if I add it there, guess what I got to do? I got to subtract it so we can keep the equation balanced. And so I just keep coming back up. So I want you to see that we're doing the same thing. We're going to go to step 1, which is identify our B. All right. So B is actually the number in front of the linear term. So this is my linear term. The number in front of this is going to be 1. Okay. Because there's no number written there. It's an understood 1 that's in front of there. So B is 1. So we're going to take half of B, which is 1 over 2, and we're going to square it. All right. So remember last time when we had a fraction, we had to figure that out. So let's do the same thing and figure this out. So 1/2 times 1/2 is what that squared that means. So 1/2 times 1/2 means that I multiply straight across. So that gives me 1 over 4. Okay. So what's going to be added to both sides? 1 over 4 will. And so now we're off to our next step, which is to rewrite in vertex form. Rewrite in vertex form. Because we have created a perfect square trinomial. So what is my perfect square trinomial? Like it was up here, a perfect square trinomial, I'm going to highlight it in yellow, is the first 3 terms here in the equation when you make that space there. So what goes in the parentheses is what you simplify to. So in our case, it's going to be 1/2 because I didn't simplify anymore, right? Before it did simplify to, I think, what, a 2. So now it's just 1/2. So how we write it? Y equals, let's write it in purple like we did it before. So Y equals X. And then because this is a positive, right, I'm going to follow that sign plus 1/2 squared. Okay. That's what gives me my first 3 terms. Now I'm going to combine the last 2 terms, which is -6 and -1/4. Okay. -6 and -1/4 is actually equal to -25/4. Okay. And you can always check behind me on that one. So, so you get -6 and -1/4 is -6 1/4. All right. To change that to an improper fraction, you multiply the 6 and the 4 together and then add the 1, which gives us -25/4. And so there goes our vertex form. In this situation, H is negative because it says X plus 1/2. So H is negative. H is going to be a -1/2. K is going to be a -25/4. So our vertex is -1/2, -25/4. And like I said before, you can graph this equation and check the vertex to see if that's what you get. Now for our last example. As you can see, we have a leading coefficient this time. So just like last time, we're going to make our leading coefficient a 1. And the way we do that is simply we're going to go ahead and get the first 2 terms, okay? So we're going to actually make some room as we make it a 1. So divide the first 2 terms by the leading coefficient, which is 4, okay? And now let's make some room. So we get 4 gets factored out. So 4 is here. X squared is what's left because 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So minus 4x. And then this is what I mean by make some room. So whatever I added here, I'm going to add inside the parenthesis because it's multiplied by 4. I'm going to move the 19 over. Okay? And remember, whatever I add here, I have to subtract. But there's a catch. Remember when I said this is actually multiplied by 4 because of what's on the outside of the parenthesis here? So that means when I subtract it, I have to also multiply whatever this is by 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 4 there to help me remember that I cannot forget to multiply by 4 when I add that number there. Okay. Now, we are still going to go to our first step, which is to identify B. Woo, picked up the wrong one. All right. So B is 4, right? So we're going to take B, we're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to square it. That is our first. So the first step was to factor out the 4, right? So let me go ahead and write that down. That was our first step. Factor out leading coefficient from first two terms. And just to reiterate, that is what gave us the x squared and the 4x inside the parenthesis. We moved the 19 over. Okay, we moved it over. And then we create whatever we add, we have to subtract. And because this is being multiplied by 4, because 4 is on the outside, we have to make sure we multiply by 4 over here. Just to recap. All right, the second step is to identify our b, and remember, do b over 2 and square it. So 4 over 2 and squared is 4 over 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So what am I adding to both sides? 4. Okay, but I'm actually adding 16, right? 4 times 4 is 16. So 4 and 4, that gives us 16. Okay, so now I'm ready to write this in vertex form, right? Because this is a perfect square trinomial. We talked about this before. You're going to write the part that you created as a perfect square trinomial in a factored form. So here we go. Y is equal to, keep the 4 out front, okay? What goes in the parenthesis? What you simplify to, because 4 over the 2 simplify to 2. And because this is a minus, I'm going to do minus here. So x minus 2 squared, okay? And then I am going to combine like terms here. So we have 19, and 4 times 4 is 16. So 19 minus 16 is actually 3. That's actually a positive 3. So we're going to add 3 here. So our vertex is 2, 3. You can actually graph this function to check it. What you write right here is y equals 4x minus 2 squared plus 3. And watch out for the next video.